Well, today I'm going to speak about the power of the heart, and specifically centering and trusting in this power. Because honestly, sometimes life kicks us around. Have you ever experienced that? I know I have. So we need a center, we need a trust, something to hang on to. And I believe that is our own heart. When I was 18 years old, I received a saxophone scholarship to the University of North Texas. And North Texas is a really fine music school. It's a great school. And I worked really hard to get in. I studied for 4 years here in Kansas City when I was in high school at a university here in town. And so I had worked pretty hard, and I got 1 out of 4 scholarships offered to the wind department. So I went to North Texas. I was really excited, I was pumped up, and right away I just dove right into it. I went to the library, I was studying scores, I was listening to obscure recordings, I was even reading doctoral dissertations. To use a term of one of our professors here, Dr. Jesse Tanner, I was geeking out. I was totally geeking out. And I was probably working 14 hours a day, sometimes 16 hours a day. I definitely wasn't taking care of myself physically. On one level, I was having a blast. I was excited, I got this scholarship. But on another level, there was something that just wasn't quite right. There was something that was missing inside of me. And I didn't know what it was, but despite the praise that I was getting, the compliments I was getting from my professors, from other students, I decided to leave the University of North Texas. And it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. So I'm going to take a step back and look at the macro view of what I see happening on our planet today. I love to generalize. People criticize me for that, but it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. So I'm going to paint a big picture here. So there's a lot of ways that we can get sucked in to what's happening in the world today. And the biggest thing I see happening is this outer emphasis, this emphasis on external things. The first thing I see is consumerism. And it's obvious. You just go to a Walmart or a Best Buy. You can buy anything. I was in Target yesterday. I noticed that there were 108 different types of fountain pens that you could buy. I was like, wow, you can buy anything. You can go online and buy anything. And in addition to this, we have this sort of image being projected at us of our physical body, of the beauty of our physical body, and we need to strive for this perfection. So that's another thing that can suck us in. We have our careers. And we're always striving for more credentials, more experience, better resumes. So we have all these outer things that can draw our attention, that can suck us in. And what's interesting is when we begin down this path, when we start to strive and look for outer things and get more and achieve more, there's really the seeds of great lack that are born within us. There's this void that starts to grow. Can you feel that today? There's this lack of peace that's starting to grow within people. And it's almost like, we feel, we're so aware here at Unity, we know, but it can really sneak up on us. It can be very subtle. And it's almost like, if I just continue to focus on these external things, on getting more, on achieving more, that this void will go away. But it doesn't. It just continues to grow. And as it grows, sometimes our ego strengthens. Sometimes we compete more and we tighten up for whatever it is we're trying to achieve externally. And as this happens, we begin to separate ourselves from spirit within. And this emptiness continues to grow. And like I say, it can really sneak up on us. When I was preparing this talk, I was starting to get into this mode, and I thought, I better make a really good talk. Dean Ted might not like it, or Kelly Isla might not like it, and I found myself getting into this mode of lack, of I'm not enough. And I thought, ooh, this is what I'm talking on. I better work on this. But in this process, we can put great strain on ourselves. In music school, for me, it wasn't so much materialism or image. It was the drive to achieve and excel, and that's what was catching me. In Japan today, there's actually an epidemic happening, and after World War II, the Japanese economy was basically annihilated. It was completely destroyed. And so the Japanese people began to focus on rebuilding their economy. Almost all their attention was focused on the external. So today there's a term in Japan called karoshi. And karoshi means death from overwork. We might think, oh, these are the older people that are getting ready to retire. These are people in their 20s and 30s that are dying from stress, from overwork, from heart attacks and strokes due to stress from overwork. And when I heard this, I thought, wow, what a wake-up call. And we might say, oh, that's just Japan, we're over here, But how many of us have lived years of our lives where we're striving and we're pushing ourselves and we're overworking ourselves? I know that I have. When I was in high school and early college, like I say, I definitely was not taking care of my physical health. And I wonder, will it take a karoshi sort of experience here in the United States to snap us out of this focus, this almost obsession that we have on the external? So when life starts to get really intense, when we start to feel pulled externally, when we feel like we're not enough, that's when it's time for us to come back to our own hearts, to center in our own hearts. That's where the power of the love in our heart can come in to help us. Charles Fillmore in the 12 Powers equates the heart with the power of love. And he says that love is just behind the physical heart. In the revealing word, he describes love saying, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. So it puts everything in context. It puts everything together. I love Hinduism, so I'm going to throw in some Hinduism. In Hinduism, there's a term called the Hridayam, and it simply means the spiritual heart. And just like Fillmore says, it's just behind the physical heart. And there's something called the chakras in Hinduism, and they're these centers of divine energy within our own spines. And there's 3 above our heart and 3 below the heart. And these give rise and sustain our physical body. So the heart is really the center of our body's energy system. Here in the States, we have an organization called HeartMath, and it's a scientific organization which studies the heart. And one of the things they study are the magnetic fields of our body. And they've discovered that the most powerful magnetic field in our body is generated by our own heart. So the heart really has a great power to it. It's got a great power. And the amazing thing is when we begin to center in our heart, these really amazing things happen. The first thing is this tremendous sense of release and peace begins to happen. It's like when you're sitting at home and you're typing on your computer and there's this annoying buzzing sound going on and you almost don't recognize it. You don't know what it is. Then the refrigerator turns off and it's like, and there's this relaxation. That's the very first thing that happens when you center in your heart. This release of tension begins to happen. And followed by that, this love that Fillmore talks about, that he equates the heart with, this divine love begins to infill you. It comes from within you and it starts to fill your heart from within. It's not dependent on anything external. And as that love starts to well up, it's a love that is so satisfying and so complete and so whole. We naturally start to feel like we are enough. It just naturally starts to happen. I am enough just as I am. Will you say that with me? I am enough just as I am. Thank you. I think we need to hear that more. We need to say that more to ourselves. The coolest thing of all that's kind of obvious is when we center in this heart, we realize that everything that we were striving for so hard out there, everything we were looking for is right within us. That all we were really looking for was love. And it's right in our own heart. How many of you remember a time when you were totally centered in your heart? It could be just hanging out with friends, with family, watching a sunset. My guess is that in that moment, you weren't thinking about what you could add to your resume. You were home. You were centered. You were in your heart. What did Jesus say was the most important commandment, all you Bible scholars out there? He said, love. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And the neat thing is the Greek word used in the New Testament for heart is cardia, which means heart, mind, soul, emotions, and feelings. All of it grouped together. So it's like he was saying, come home, come back to the center. Come back to love. Love. the most important commandment. So after I left the University of North Texas, I came back here to Kansas. I'm a Kansas boy, even though we're in Missouri. I came back here, and I enrolled at the University of Kansas. And it just felt right. It just felt right. I began to slow down for the first time in many years. My mind slowed down, and I began to feel this sense of peace. And one day, I just had this feeling to go across the street from my dorm at Hashinger Hall. And I walked across the street, and there was this graveyard, this little graveyard. And I sat down there, and I just had this feeling like I should meditate. I'd never meditated before in this life. And that was 14 years ago, almost to this day. And as I sat there, it was a beautiful night. And as I sat there, I began to feel this sensation of energy come down into my head, and it descended through my spine, and it landed in my heart. And as it landed in my heart, it just started to fill my heart up with love. It just started to fill my heart more and more. It filled my arms and my legs and my back, and it filled my whole body and started radiating outward into the world. And I had never experienced anything like this. Through music, I had experienced love. I experienced incredible joy, incredible social connection with other people. I had deep friendships in my life, but I had never experienced this sort of energy before. It was coming from within me. It didn't depend on anything around me. And that night really changed my life. And it didn't stop there. It continued for a couple years, actually. Not that experience, actually, but experiences like that continued. And there were amazing things that happened. My mind calmed down for the first time in my whole life. And I began to hear Spirit's guidance from moment to moment. Should I eat this turkey sandwich or whatever? It was amazing. I mean, I felt this inner guidance every moment. And how cool is that, to have that connection with Spirit? And not only that, but my physical body became healthier. My mind expanded, and I experienced things that I'd never experienced with my mind before. And all of this resulted because I just gave the heart a chance. I dropped into my heart. I allowed it to expand and to open. And I centered within myself. It completely transformed my life. It catapulted me onto this path of ministry. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that night in April of 2000. I didn't know, anything about unity. I didn't know anything about all of this. But I just knew that I needed to share this experience. I needed to share this love that was in my heart. It took me a long time, but here I am. So how do we do this? How do we center in our heart? Well, if these experiences haven't occurred for you, if you've centered in your heart, it's okay. Be patient. Even if there's a little bit of peace that comes, that's the beginning. That's the first step. And I'm still working on it, honestly, but I found some things that can help. And I found 3 things. The first thing that I love to do is chanting. It's so simple. Anybody can do it. And I like to do a devotional Indian form of chanting, which is called kirtan. And kirtan is where you just take a name of God or several names of God, and you just chant them over and over again. And as you do, you sing with music. You don't have to be a great singer. It's okay. You sing with other people, and you just get into your heart space. And you totally focus on your heart. You just let your heart sing. And as you drop into that devotional space, you choose a name that's meaningful to you for God. You can just choose God. And you just focus on that, and you sing your heart out. And as you do that, the heart is activated. The heart opens. And it fills you with that divine love which comes from within. The second thing I love to do is breath work. And it's just deep breathing. It's very simple. Whenever I feel stressed out, or caught up in things here at school or really anywhere, I just bring my attention to my breath. And I focus breathing very deeply in and out of my heart, in and out of my heart space. And immediately those tensions begin to release. And I begin to feel that inner connection with Spirit once again. And that love starts to come out of me. It's so powerful, so simple, but it takes practice. The final thing I like to do is a Buddhist practice called mindfulness. And John Kabat-Zinn, who's the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, there's a famous quote of his where he says that in Asian languages, typically the heart and the mind are the same word. So to understand what mindfulness is, we have to think of it in terms of heartfulness. So mindfulness is just being fully present to whatever it is that we're doing. If we're walking down the street, we're fully present of our feet touching the ground with each step that we take. Or we're fully present of the sounds of nature all around us. It's really beautiful. Or say we're washing dishes. We're fully present of that dish in front of us. Our mind, maybe it's doing its chatter, but we bring it back to that dish, and we feel that warmth of the water, this amazing miracle of these bodies that we're in. And the awesome thing about mindfulness is you don't have to have this 7-step intellectual process to open the heart. When you fully engage something with your whole being, see, most of the time our minds are somewhere else, but when we bring our full attention to whatever we're doing, the heart naturally opens. It's beautiful. And the amazing thing is with our thoughts, wherever we think of, if we think of a location, especially in our body, energy will follow. So with all these practices, with chanting, with breath work, with mindfulness, we just have to focus in on our heart, and the heart becomes activated and energized. So I'm going to close with one final story, and some of you who were in homiletics with me have heard this, but I think that it really illustrates the power of love and the power of the heart. And it's about my grandpa's passing. And he was just a wonderful man. He was a doctor in a small town, and he practiced medicine there for about 40 years here in Kansas. And, he was well respected. He was known by everybody in town. He had saved many people's lives. He used his mind so meticulously. And he had so much fun. He was kind. He had a hilarious sense of humor and this huge, huge heart. Well, Spirit had given me the intuitive guidance that my grandpa had about two weeks to live. And so I spent both of those weekends with him. And it came to be about the last night. Spirit was telling me, this is it. This is the last night you'll see with your grandpa. You'll see him alive. So at that time, I worked a job that was afternoon, evening shift. And as I got off work, I went to the care facility where he was staying. And it was basically closed down. They had a code for me so I could get in. And I went to his room, and it was just him in the room. There was very little there. It was just a bed and a chair. And at this time, he could no longer speak, so he was just laying there. And I pulled up a chair, and I sat down next to my grandpa, and I began to unfold all these memories that I had with him. And I told him about how he'd sit there in the park with me and watch me ride my skateboard. And it was really the first time I had ever seen someone who was really at peace, really centered in their heart. It was like he was meditating. It was so beautiful, so vivid. Or he'd take me to the Dairy Queen, and he called me Beffers. He'd say, "Get whatever you want, Beffers." Which was like, to a little kid, the peanut butter parfait was like, yes! The Holy Grail. I can get that. So, but he would get, anything for me. He was so kind and so funny. He always had a joke, for everybody. But as I told these stories, I could just, I could see it vividly, him just laying on that bed. It was like he was just soaking it all taking it all in. And this love just started pouring out of his heart. And it just filled the whole room with love. It was so palpable, so powerful. And toward the end, I told him he was the best grandpa I ever could have had. And I told him I loved him, and I got up to stand at the door to leave, and I looked back, and I didn't want to leave because this love was so powerful. And it reminded me of every time, that we had been together, and what was underlying all of that. And in that moment, I realized that, here's this man that had saved people's lives and is so smart, and had so much fun in his life and all the loving things he had done for me and for my family. And yet, what he was showing me as I was telling him all these stories was that underneath everything in this rich life that he had done, underneath all of it was love. And underneath all of it was this vibration of the heart. And that's the real power. That's the real power of the heart. It's the center. It's eternal. So whenever you find yourself getting caught up, whether it's here at school, in your lives, in your careers, when you feel like you're not enough, where you've got to strive and get more and be more and do more, I just invite you to just take your hand and just put it on your heart and say, how are you doing in there? And you're enough just as you are. And I love you. So never forget that power that's right within your own heart. From this moment until your last breath, remember that love that's right within you. God bless you.